Can you guys see me okay? I see the Claire's there. Are we live? You can see me? Yay! Okay, good. Hi, everybody. I apologize for the delay. Couldn't get set up on YouTube. So we meant to be live 20 minutes ago. I really apologize. It's it's a challenge to do this without a team. It's very, very hard. Yeah, so, and it's, you're encountering, I have Sage, I have Sage Goddess remotely, I have Claire remotely, I have Alexis remotely. I don't want to throw Dave under the bus, but he didn't set me up for class today. So we're all trying to do it. But you know what? Let's also say Dave has a lot on his plate. Dave is trying to manage construction on the new building today. So it's a little hard we're trying to do 10 things at once. So thank you for your patience. We're getting started late, but we're still doing the thing. Yeah, Barbara. Barbara didn't do a great job today, but Barbara's also really busy. We should boom Shiva together. Okay, so I am ready to get started. I hope you are too. I'm going to smudge because smudge. Look, time is real weird right now. Some of you are essential workers. So some of you are like, no, time is real, and it's still the same. But for some of you, time is different. It's true. It's Brittany Grotto's first Soul Shift class. What a great class to begin with, honestly. Because tonight I'm bringing it back to the beginning for you. Tonight's pretty powerful for me. It really is. And I'll tell you why. You ready? And I see you. Girl, Roxanne knew I just want to hug and kiss you. Because if you are an essential worker, time is real hard right now. That's why even on my hardest days, and some of these days are really hard. Today was hard. You are not going to hear me really complain. Because I'm not on the front line in a hospital. I'm not delivering food to people. I'm not going to complain, even on the hardest of days. My kids might complain. I'm not going to complain to you. Nick, it was really nice to see you today in our readings. I'm sending so much love to you. This isn't easy where you are. And you know what, Hillary? I'm glad I got to pull for you today. I really am. I'm glad. I miss you. I miss seeing you in person. But I'm really glad I got to see you virtually today. Dawn Marie is an essential worker with a broken heel, right? I hear you. So, yeah, no complaints right now from me, even on the hard days. Even on the hard days. Okay. So let me give this to you. We're all doing the best we can, you know what I mean? And it's not perfect, and it's not, I'm such a perfectionist. I want everything to be perfect all the time. I can't make this perfect. You gotta let it go and just be good with what's here. Is it Janai or Janae Kwan asking about stones for night terrors? I have odd experience with this. I've never had them, but I know many people who do. And sodalite's really the stone. Sodalite and black tourmaline. Really good for night terrors. Wasn't it Julie NC? Okay, yeah. I'm glad that's helpful. This isn't perfect, right? Emily Flanders. Okay, so let's bring this back to basics. I want to teach you a little bit with your permission. You're very welcome. Night terrors happen when people are going through or about to go through spiritual growth. And it's because, and particularly when people are moving from darkness to light, that's when night terrors happen. And so they're a spiritual growth spurt. They can be very scary. They're not permanent. People grow out of them. but they are often a sign that someone is going through an intense spiritual transformation. So hold space. Same thing. They are upgrading and up leveling, and there's something in them that resists it, and then they stop. Something holds on, right? So anyway, have patience. Don't be afraid when someone's having night terrors. They're going through a spiritual transformation, and some part of them is resisting it. And then when they stop resisting, they go away, right? I'm glad you asked, because people have these issues all the time, and they're afraid to ask because it's kind of a taboo subject. Like, ooh, night terrors, I don't want to talk about that, right? It happens. You're graduating. Congratulations, you're graduating. Right? You're graduating. And some part of you is like, wants to not, right? It's normal and happens. I'm really glad that was helpful. Again, thank you for asking the question, because other people have the question too. So I'm always telling you, you think you have a question and you're like, I don't know, should I ask it? I'm not sure. Always ask the question. Somebody else needs to hear the answer too. Do you see the feed? No. I'll tell you something though, and this feels relevant for all of you guys, and it's actually relevant to tonight's journey. You ready? Anybody else married or living with a person? I don't care if you're married, it's just a piece of paper. Anybody else living with another adult that you have sex with? Anybody else? Guess what? Okay. You don't advance spiritually at the same time. Dave and I have been like this. I've been living with Dave for 20 years, okay? And I'm always ahead because I said yes to this contract and he said, yes, I'll help her, right? So I go like this and then he goes like that. And I go like this and he goes like that. And I go like this and he goes like that. And then he'll go a little bit like that. And then I go boop, 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 boop. Doesn't matter if you're having sex now. I'm saying, do you have an intimate physical relationship? So it's a leapfrog, okay? Boop, 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 boop. And a good partner tries to keep up, right? There's always one partner that's kind of ahead. And that creates a lack of equilibrium in the spiritual sphere. And so it's very common for one partner to have night terrors and the other one not to. Because the one partner is like, ooh, the up-leveling, right? Sleep paralysis falls into the same category. This is the subconscious taking over during dream time, okay? There's always one who's and it's, I am this person, I'm the one who's always ahead. That is stressful, and it puts a lot of pressure. It's like, I'm the one who's like, I'll go, I'll do that, I'll try that, I'll go ahead, I'll be first, right? But then there's also pressure on the one who's like, trying to like get there, right? Like, oh, you jumped again. Okay, let me try. Okay, oh, you jumped again. Okay, you jumped again, right? So a lot of times you see kind of sleep disturbances, sleep paralysis, nightmares, night terrors, all that stuff, like the jumpy in the night, because there's like a lag in the spiritual development. The person who goes first tends to have none of that. But the person who comes behind tends to have a little bit of that, like, if you ask them, they tend to have the nightmares and the night terrors, right? And so it feels like they're going through this process. But I've just noticed it. I've noticed it in my own relationship. I've noticed it in clients' relationships. There's always one who's like ahead and one who like does this thing, right? It's a great regulator, Denise Campbell. I mean, I highly recommend it. But it's really, really tricky. Some people don't have a strong sex drive. It doesn't matter. I mean, honestly, it really doesn't matter. I have plenty of very happily married friends who don't have intense sexual relationships. And I have plenty of friends who are very unhappy with each other and have great sexual relationships. Sexual energy is not the hallmark of a strong relationship. Commitment to a mutual path and purpose is the hallmark of a strong relationship. It's just nice sometimes because sex unifies energy fields. It's just nice sometimes to have it because it brings the two energy fields together and it merges them, but you don't have to have it. No. I mean, listen, once you're done having babies or making babies, what's your sex drive for? I mean, you know what I mean? It's okay. Wherever you are is okay. Well, so then if you're stuck in night terrors and you're not progressing, you need to start asking yourself about your spiritual growth. And you need to start doing some of that inner work. Yeah? Well, it's to enjoy, right? But if you don't have a sex drive, I don't want you to be hard on yourself because maybe you don't need it. But that doesn't mean you can't stop and enjoy yourself and connect and feel physical. But if you don't feel like you have to have sex, that's okay. I think it's okay. I don't like the shaming of people who are like, I'm not interested. It's like, okay, that's not the work that you need to do right now. So there shouldn't be any like shaming or discomfort around them. Seasons are part of it, although I know a lot of people who are past 50, 60 years old who are still hot to trot, as my grandma would have said. Listen, I still like sex, so I'm not saying it's not fun. But it waxes and wanes, right? It's not like every single day, but there's still a lot of fun in it. Yeah, it's important to come to terms with it in your relationship because you don't want partners shaming each other. That doesn't work either. So, can I talk to you about how this all relates to tonight's journey? Yeah, sex is not love, Ms. Melissa. It can be, but it isn't always. Sex is not the highest expression of love, in my personal opinion. It isn't. I have had the highest expression of love with people in my life that I have never had sex with. There is a higher expression of love than that. That is a unification, but that is not the highest expression. You know what I mean? Yeah, I love that. You know, maybe so. Maybe their creative energy is expressed in a different way. What is the highest? It's spiritual. I have had relationships in my past that were high expressions of love, where they were never physical. Sex unifies energy fields. In a way, it's a forced expression. Zing, right? But it isn't necessarily the highest expression of love. There is a spiritual love that can be expressed between human beings who never physically entangle with each other. That's my opinion, though. I mean, Tammy's husband disagrees. And I'm not saying Tammy's husband is wrong, by the way. For him, if sex is the highest expression, then so it is. But for me, it is not. Does that make sense? For me, it's not. I've felt it from holding hands. I've felt it from kissing. I've felt it from just sitting next to someone in a sacred space. I've felt it from eye contact. The highest expression of love, right? Have you? Just from the eye contact. It's like, that takes it to a whole different level, right? Yeah, from being wrapped up in someone's arms. That's an expression of love, and connection, beauty, truth, right? The touch, right? Not even sexual touch. I've hugged people and felt a deeper connection than I've felt in certain sexual relationships. Holding hands is really special. Listening to heartbeat, right? I've laid on people's chests and been like, this is it. Just feeling their heart, like, the core of the essence of who they are, right? It's really true. Julie needs to be held. If you were here, I'd snuggle with you on this bed right here. Pop you in there and snuggle you right up, Julie. I'm pretty short, so I'm usually like the under the arm person. I'm not usually like the one who you know what I mean? Like, you know how the short person always goes under and the tall person always like holds them? I'm usually the little one under your arm. I'm 5 feet tall, so I'm like a snack size, but I'm the little spoon. That's right. It's so cute. Okay, so let me connect this all back to Hermes. Ready? Because session 3 of Soul Shift has begun. Yeah, it's good, isn't it, Brittany? And I'll tell you something. This conversation is critical. Because there's plenty of people who think, I'm not having sex, I'm not intimate, I must be disconnected, I must not have the kind of love that I need. And tonight's message is, that's not true. That's not true. That may not be the highest expression. It is an expression. But is it the highest expression? I don't know. I'm going to start with my own personal journey with Hermes Trismegistus, and then I'm going to connect it to like other people's teachings, and then I'm going to journey with you. I wasn't planning to use my mala tonight. Do you want to? I wasn't planning on it. I'm not feeling it right now, so let's not do mala work tonight. Is that okay? We can come back and do it at session 4 if you want, but I'm not feeling it tonight. Let's move where the energy's going, and then if we feel like it, we can come back. I love Sharon's like yes, and Joan is no. So I'm playing 3 different instruments for you tonight, by the way. Tonight's bringing a lot full circle for me. A lot full circle for me. I'll explain it to you in just a minute. And then because there's 3 forms of this energy: Mercury, Thoth, and Hermes tonight. Okay, so let me back up the truck and try to explain this as best I can. It would take me probably 8 hours to teach you everything I could teach you on this subject. At some point, maybe I'll teach a whole masterclass on the origins of wisdom in the world, which is what I'm about to share with you. Okay. I have been studying what we're about to talk about and living it to a certain extent my entire life. I first discovered the Emerald Tablet, what's known as the Kybalion, when I was in my early 20s. Maybe it was even my late teens. It was through my priestess training. And at the time, I didn't quite understand it, to be honest with you. If you encounter the great truths too early, then you're like, I don't know. I can't understand them. Samantha, that's coming. Team SG, can you respond to Samantha Dickens about the astrological bonus class? They'll follow up with you in the feed so I can focus, but I do want to let you know that's coming. The Emerald Tablet, or the Kybalion, which is the wisdom of Hermes and the Hermetic principles, on the face of it sounds so simple. And then you realize it's so complicated. You realize it really is the keys to the castle. And you realize, in my opinion, you have to have a little bit of life wisdom under your belt to really get it. So then I re-encountered it later in my 20s. I still don't think I was ready yet. Re-encountered it in my early 30s before Sage Goddess. And I started to get it. I re-encountered it after I had kids. And then I really thought I had gotten it. And then I re-encountered it after starting work with plant teachers like mushrooms and cannabis and ayahuasca and San Pedro. And then I realized I had finally gotten it. And I still don't know if I'm at the apex of my understanding of it. Something tells me I'm not. It's funny. Do you have bucket list things that you really wanted to do in your life? Because we have this extra time, I've been going through my bucket list. I was invited 2 years ago to do a peyote vision quest in the Mexican desert in Sonora. And I didn't go. It was like, I'm too busy. I've got too much going on. That is like the next, for me, if you want to know like what my next graduation is, it will be going into the Sonoran Desert and vision questing with those who do peyote medicine. I haven't done that yet. My list is getting real long. and from now on, when I get invited, I'm going. I'm not going to be like, well, I'm really busy. Now I'm going to be like, Amex travel, right? Have you done it, Dina? I don't know. I was a little scared. I was a little put off because it's such an intense journey, but at the same time, and they have to invite you. You can't invite yourself, kind of thing. In any case, so I feel like I've got it now, but I bet you when I come back from a journey, a peyote vision quest or something like that, I'll probably tell you now I finally got it, right? So a long time ago, I was told by a psychic that I was Thoth, okay? And I've shared this story with you before, that I was an incarnation of that energy. I still only half believe it. But then, when I look at the signs of my life where it's like I've taught writing forever. I used to be a writing teacher. I'm multilingual. I'm Atlantean, right? Like there's a lot of, I think a lot of us carry that Thoth energy. I don't think I personally am Thoth, but I think a lot of us are Thothian in the sense that I think we are Atlantean, and I think we carry a lot of that Thoth vibration. And then I'm going to share the story. I know a lot of you know it, but some of you are newer. But it helps you understand why tonight's really special for me. So Thoth is one of the three faces of Hermes Trismegistus, who's considered the father of alchemy, the father of magic, the father of writing. Okay. Are you Thothian too? How many of you think you're Thothian? I'm curious. The signs of being Thothian are being highly scientific, highly analytical, highly into writing and written communication, multilingual. I've never met a Thothian who wasn't multilingual. These are the signs for me of being Thothian. So scientific, multilingual, really keyed into writing, feeling intimately connected to magic, being able to transform elements. Some people describe themselves as shapeshifters when they're Thothian, right? And I don't think, I agree with you, Brittany Grotto. I think there's an Arcturian Thothian connection, right? So, and it doesn't matter. It's not good, bad, or otherwise. It's just, are you or are you not? You don't have to be fluent. Close to fluent, though. The sign of being Thothian is, so if I go to a country, so I'm fluent in French and Spanish and English. I can read and write Latin and Greek. And I can understand a lot of Portuguese. Those are my languages, okay? And I'm credentialed as a Spanish teacher and an English teacher. So those are the languages that I have credentials to teach. But when I go to another country, like if I go to Italy, after a week or two, I'm speaking Italian. And it freaks people out. But I can like slip into a language and then just start speaking it. So that's kind of Thothian, if you just go somewhere and you start picking it up. Japanese happened that way with me too. I'm not fluent in Japanese by any measure, but I can count. I can mostly understand conversation. I can read a little bit of katakana. Are you multilingual too? So it's interesting. If language is really, really easy for you, that's Thothian. And that tends to be Atlantean. Can you do it too, Esperanza? And accents, Carolyn. So that's another thing too. If you go into a country and you start to pick it up, and Sylvie said Hindi happened to her. Yeah, but Italian's different than Spanish. I studied both at once, and talk about a head trip. Because you think they're close, but they're actually pretty different. They're both Romance languages linked to Latin, right? So it's like the roots are similar, but oh my God, like the accents and a lot of the words are quite different between Spanish and Italian. Sanskrit counts 1,000%. So if it's harder, that's okay. And if it's easier, I mean, it's not good, bad, or otherwise. Don't start speaking Japanese to me, Bonnie. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Yeah, Tia did the same thing I did. I was taking Italian and Latin, Latin, and Spanish at the same time as an undergrad. And that was a damn trip. I was messing up on one quiz. I would write one thing one way, and then another quiz the next week, I would write the other thing the other way. And it was like, I can't do this all at once. Okay. Now, about 5 years ago, I was reading a book on the flower of life. It's a well-known book, and a lot of you remember this when this happened. And I was sitting outside, and I didn't realize Zoe was behind me, and she was looking over my shoulder. And there was a section about Thoth and the flower of life and the origins of magic in ancient Egypt. And so I'm reading it, and all of a sudden I hear Zoe, and she goes, "I know him." And she points to the picture of Thoth. Thoth is kind of creepy, okay? Thoth isn't like, oh, I know him. Like, he's animal human, and he doesn't really look like, he looks like something out of a Star Wars movie, right? Do you know the book? So she points at the picture, and she goes, "I know him." This was 5-ish years ago, about. And so I looked back at her. She's 11 now, so she was 6 when this happened. And I said, "You know him?" And she said, "Yeah. When I was in your belly, he told me all of his secrets." A lot of you remember that. And I literally was like, stopped in my tracks. I mean, she wasn't making a joke. She was like, "No, when I was in your belly, he told me all of his secrets." I'm like, what? That happened. You remember? I mean, I went right into sabbatical at the time, and I was like, holy shit. Zoe just told me that when I was pregnant with her, that Thoth told her all his secrets. Right? A lot of you were there. Zoe is very wise. Zoe, when she's old enough, will make me look like a novice at all of this. She will. One day. You'll be like, your mom was good, but not as good as you are, right? She remembers a lot. Okay. Now, those stories aside, I have soul memories, and it's really interesting because my part of my DNA lineage, I've done a lot of those tests that you guys have probably done. A lot of my DNA lineage is on the continent of Africa. A good chunk of it is Nigerian, actually, and Egyptian. And so in addition to having the Greek lineage, I have those lineages too. And so I do believe that at some point, if you look at early landmass maps, there was a certain point at which the area that they say is Atlantis was connected to the continent of Africa. I'm sure you guys have seen those maps. And so do you have Egyptian as well? So what we believe happened is that those who were in Atlantis at the time were able to make the land journey from Atlantis to Egypt. And that's where Thoth, who was Atlantean, came through with language and mathematics and communication, moved to Egypt and took the position as Thoth. So Hermes Trismegistus, before he was Hermes and before he was Mercury, was Thoth. That's the earliest, okay? Can you clarify for me, Pagan OB? You've asked me a couple of times, and what I'm wanting is clarification about what from Bruno's teachings you want me to focus on. Can you share that with me? And if you can't share it here, can you post in our Facebook group? I want to be able to give you what you're looking for, but I need a little bit more clarification of what you're looking for, and then I can weave it in and share more with you. Okay, so Thoth was in Atlantis. That's when Thoth, in my opinion, first appeared on this planet. And Thoth went from, thank you, I appreciate it, I really do. I did 23andMe. I don't know which one resonates with you, but that's the one that I did. And that's a whole story for another time. So Thoth went from Atlantis to Egypt, became Thoth, okay? And then from Atlantis to Greece, and from Greece to Rome is the trajectory. So Thoth became, in Greece, Hermes, and then in the Roman tradition became Mercury. Any questions about this before we move on? It's fascinating, isn't it? Any questions about that? The one thing about 23andMe that really freaked me out, on my mom's side, it said that there was a radical genetic mutation at 12 to 15,000 years ago. They don't always show this, but on my mom's line, there was some, and I can't remember exactly the way they framed it, but that's the way it came back. And it basically said there was some traumatic cataclysmic event on my mom's side 12 to 15,000 years ago that radically shifted or modified our DNA. And if you look at that, that's the timeline for Atlantis and Lemuria. Pretty interesting, isn't it? I don't know, Debbie. I mean, if you get worried about stuff like that, then you start worrying about just about everything. I kind of don't care if that information gets out. I know. I showed it to my mom, and she was like, it's interesting. On my dad's side, there was nothing like that. But on my mom's side, it showed this radical genetic mutation at 12 to 15,000 years. Yeah, so a lot of much. Great question. So Thoth, Hermes, and Mercury are the tri meaning three, in Hermes Trismegistus. Does that make sense? So Hermes Trismegistus is a threefold, what they call thrice great god, who is Thoth in the Egyptian tradition, Hermes, right, in the Greek tradition, and Mercury, or Mercurius, as he was called, Mercurius, Mercurius in Latin. Does that make sense? So Thoth went from Egypt to Greece to Rome, and that's how we have three different gods who have three different names in three different traditions. But here's what's interesting about it. Yeah, well, in Egypt, Hermes and Thoth. So here's what you have to know. And this is where it gets really complicated. In Hermopolis, Greece, okay, ancient Greece, Thoth was worshipped as Hermes. They recognized Thoth in Hermopolis as Thoth, but they also worshipped him as Hermes. So these three names of Hermes, Thoth, and Mercury are interchangeable. They are the same energy stream. Yes, Stephanie Ann, that's exactly right. It is the same energy with three different names. We struggle with this because if I told you that my name was Athena, but my name was also Barbara, and that I also went by Joanne, you'd be like, she has multiple personality disorder. She needs to be in a padded room and not teaching online classes. She's unstable, right? If I told you that I have these three different names, but I'm all kind of the same person, but then the three different people do different things, you'd be like, this lady has lost her damn mind, okay? I love it. Sylvie's like, is she a Gemini? That's right. It's Aries, Jan Perko, as Jan said. It's very smart, right? It's three different areas. So in Egypt, he's known primarily as Thoth. In Greece, he's known primarily as Hermes, but also worshipped as Thoth. And then in Rome, he's known as Mercurius, but he's still acknowledged as Thoth and as Hermes, even though Hermes is Greek. And then today, we call his wisdom Hermetic. Where does that word come from? If you say something is hermetically sealed, what does that mean? Think about the origins of your words, because that's what tonight is about. If I say, oh, that's been hermetically sealed, what does that mean? Nothing can get in, right? Hermetic wisdom is considered wisdom that people cannot understand unless they have the gift, right? Cecilia. Well, because you called me out as a Leo today with that very accurate video that you posted. So that's where Trismegistus. Trismegistus means thrice great. Great in three ways. Now, I'm going to walk you through some of the more specifics about this, and then we're going to encounter these three different energy streams in Journey tonight. But I have to set the stage for this a little bit more before we get there. Okay. Hermes. Hermes, in the Greek tradition, is the god of intelligence, magic, and protection. Hermes is considered a messenger god. And in fact, when you see Hermes, he's always in flight. You know, it looks like he's always moving. So you think the messenger, like he's always in transition. I'm glad it's not confusing. I'm trying to make this as simple as I can because honestly, like this has been hard for me to track for the last 20 some odd years I've been trying to do it. Okay. Well, this is where I'm going, Stephanie Ann. It's a great question. And yes, Alexis and Team SG are taking notes. So you don't have to do anything. Just like be here with me now. There'll be notes for you later. Yeah, the journey we don't have notes for, but this part we do. Yeah, like the winged shoes, right, Brittany? Like he's moving. If you've seen statues of Hermes, they're beautiful. But when people say messenger, I think they think like mailman. Stay there, Heidi Cruz, because I'm getting there in just a second. Stay there. Do you see her comment? He gave a message to Calypso in the Odyssey. Stay there. Odysseus was the great-grandson of Hermes. Odysseus is the protagonist of the Odyssey in Greek. If I could do whatever I wanted in Soul Shift, I don't. I kind of go with what I think you're going to like. But if I could do whatever I wanted in Soul Shift, I would actually read you the Odyssey. I've thought about doing it as like an audio recording because it's the Iliad and the Odyssey are the two foundational books of Western civilization. Like they are the oldest stories, and they're two of my favorite books. I mean, Athena is in the Odyssey, so it's partly why I love it, because it helped me learn about myself. I love those books. I've taught those books so many times. I love reading them. Maybe one day I will sit down and record them because they're beautiful. I mean, this is just like foundational. And a lot of you have read them. Millie, I'm not surprised because Millie's Greek, so it's like it's required when you're Greek. I have Odysseia Kai Iliada here in Greek. So I'm not going to read it to you in Greek, but my dad has the original Odysseia Kai Iliada. They're beautiful books. So anyway, one of these days, that's on my bucket list to do next. Okay. Odysseus, who's the protagonist of the Odyssey, right? Penelope's husband, who went on his journey, right? Was the great-grandson of Hermes. And Hermes taught Odysseus magic. So they're all related. You know what I mean? The lineages between all of this, it's like you start to see how it's incestuous almost, how all of these narratives and stories and Greek gods and the characters and the metaphysics and everything, like there's this really interesting, it's like DNA, the chains just sort of web together. Okay, here's where I wanted to go with that though. By messenger, they mean prophet. Hermes is a messenger the same way Crow is a messenger. Right? Crow is the messenger in the Native American and indigenous traditions. Crow is bringing you wisdom. When there's a crow squawking next to you, it's time to pay attention. Something is happening or about to happen. And that crow that's squawking outside your window or keeps showing up where you are is trying to alert you. And it's a prophecy. It's not like a real messenger, like, oh, running or something. It's like something's about to happen and it's trying to get your attention. Does that make sense? So that's what Hermes is. It's a satyr type magic. That's right. It's a prophetic magic. It's a visionary magic. It's a foresight, if you will. Right? Hawk. Well, I have two hawks that live down the street from my house here. They've lived here forever. They go for sunset drives together. It's a couple, and they live together in this tree. And every year they have a baby. They only have one baby. Their baby is very small right now. And they go in circles over the ocean because I live near the cliffs. And they go for their sunset. Next time they do it, I'll go live so that you can see them. They do it about every 2 days that I see because I tend to be out at sunset time. It's so beautiful. Okay, that's Hermes. Mercury. In Rome, in ancient Rome, Hermes became Mercurius. And it's interesting because my beloved Momo, who owns Mercurius Jewelry, borrowed the name of his business from Hermes Trismegistus, who was Mercurius in ancient Rome. Now, Mercurius, Momo's business is spelled I-O-U-S, like curious. He kind of played on that. In Latin, in Rome, it was M-E-R-C-U-R-I-U-S without the O. Does that make sense? So that's the difference in spelling. But Momo is quite Thothian too. I think that's where he and I find each other. Because Momo and I, from the moment I met him, I was like not in a romantic sense, but it's like he and I definitely have a relationship. And I know him pretty well. Like he's stayed here at my house and, you know, I've spent a lot of time with him. So he's a really good soul if you ever buy any of his jewelry. He's magic. He really is a magician, through and through, and he's got an amazing soul. Okay, Mercurius, and he's in Bali right now where they're having a really hard time. So if you have space for prayer, everybody in Bali is really struggling right now, so they would really appreciate your prayers. Okay, Mercurius had as his magical wand the caduceus. Do you know what the caduceus is? Okay. Yeah, we can come back to the crows, Larissa, later, so just remind me and we'll talk more about the crows. I want to kind of stay where we are because I want to prep you for Journey, but then I'll come back and tell you more about that. Just remind me. Okay, so the caduceus gets often confused with the rod of Asclepius. So the rod of Asclepius was the god of healing in ancient Greece. And the rod of Asclepius is a wand with a snake wrapped around it. You see it on doctors' offices. It's oftentimes on the graduation certificates when people get their MD. There's usually a rod of Asclepius on there. Okay, the caduceus is different. The rod of Asclepius, which is for healing, has one snake. The caduceus, okay, right, which I've loved for a long time. Louis at Stone Age Jewelry makes caduceus jewelry, which I think is so beautiful. That's the rod with the double snakes. Now, the double snakes are both the double helix of DNA as well as the Kundalini energy that sits at your root chakra and like winds up. And the rod in the caduceus is your spine. It's the Sushumna. It's the central column in which your chakras sit. And those two snakes are the double helix of the DNA, but they're also the masculine and feminine energies in your body that ultimately at the top of that caduceus come together. Have you seen it? The heads of the snake come together, and that's the integration of the masculine and the feminine. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions about this? Am I still being really clear? I'm trying so hard to make this simple. I don't want to confuse you. So the rod of Asclepius, that's right, the caduceus is the staff of Hermes and Mercurius. The rod of Asclepius is the magic wand of Asclepius, who's the god of healing in the Greek tradition. And they get confusing. Okay? Okay, good. You guys are good. And again, the rod in the caduceus is your spine. So that is the Kundalini energy rising up your spine over the Sushumna that ultimately connects across the 7 central channels or the 7 chakras in your physical system and connects up here at the top of your head. So that's your integration. So they're similar, but they're not the same. Yeah. Later on, Alexis, will you share links to Louis' shop, which is stoneage.co.uk, and then Momo shop, which is mercurius.com. I think it's Mercurius or Mercurius Designs, just so you can see. Not to buy anything if you don't want to. I mean, they're great people to support. And I think Louis got a sale going on right now. But that way you can see these designs in jewelry. It gives you a perspective so that you can kind of see them. So Alexis will post their shops for you later so that you can see. They're both amazing humans. I love them. I trust them. I appreciate them. I think they're good places to go. Okay. All right. What else do I want to tell you about this? Now, Thoth in Egypt is highly revered, right? He's the founder of the entire written tradition in ancient Egypt, right? And so all of the hieroglyphics are attributed to Thoth in ancient Egypt. Oh, thank you. Cindy Kohlmiller is already on top of it. She already put the links to the rods and their histories. Thank you for that. So in ancient Egypt, Thoth is thought to have invented hieroglyphics, which of course is one of the original forms of writing. So he's considered the father of writing, the father of language, the father of communication, the father of magic, and the father of alchemy. And alchemy is the act of transforming one element to another. Does that make sense? Then he goes to Greece. And in Greece, he becomes Hermes. And then he becomes the messenger, the god of prophecy, but still associated with communication, with alchemy, with transformation from one state to the other. Then he gets translated finally to ancient Rome. And if my dad was sitting here, he would tell you, because he's always proud of this, that ancient Greece is always ahead of ancient Rome. Everything begins in Greece, and then they take a form of it, not as good, and it goes to Rome. But it begins in Greece and it ends in Rome. So I will tell you what my dad would tell you, which is everything begins in Greece, and then the Romans rip it off and take it to Rome. It actually is kind of true. But he's very proud of that. He's like, Roman things are nice, but you must know they are copies of what begins in Greece. It all begins in Greece, and then it goes through Rome, and it's something different. I don't know. It's very cute. Okay. Now, there's an interesting layer. It's so true. My dad is Gus from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. He's so Gus, I can't even tell you. He's not as outgoing as Gus, but he's very, very true. He will tell you that Rome is a big old ripoff of Greece. In Rome, Mercurius, this is the last thing I'm going to tell you. And there you go. It's so true. I don't know why that made me laugh really, really hard. We dropped off all kinds of groceries to my dad today, so my heart is full. I love knowing he doesn't have to leave his house because I'm so protective of my dad. I have him on lockdown right now. I'm so protective of him. So anyway, but here's what you have to know about Mercurius. Throughout history, since the beginning, I mean, even back to Atlantis, Thoth wasn't just seen as a founder of writing and a founder of alchemy and all these things. Thoth was also seen as a trickster god. A god that kind of played with things and made riddles, and it sort of like reminds me of oh my gosh, who am I thinking of? Rumpelstiltskin. Right? Do you know Rumpelstiltskin? How there's this little there's this I don't know, gold powder and kind of mystery and like smoke and mirrors and kind of things. A little bit of a Loki energy, right? There's a Loki vibration, a Gollum vibration to Hermes and Mercurius in particular. So once it got to Rome, there was much more of a focus on the trickster energy, trying to play a trick on you, trying to pull one over on you, trying to show you one thing and it really means another thing, and then riddles and layers of meanings and things, right? So anyway, that's the difference really between, in my experience, between what we know of Hermes in Greece, which is much more serious, much more focused on prophecy and alchemy and transmutation, and then you get to Rome where you get Mercurius and he's playful and he's a trickster and he's all of those things. Right, Teresa Jolly? You have any questions about that? So he goes from being this the further his journey goes along, the more playful he becomes. In Egypt, I don't think anyone really thought of Thoth as being much of a trickster energy. So the Kybalion is much more, at least from my perspective, Thothian. But it represents the culmination and the integration of all of these different traits. But here's where it all comes down, and I'm glad you asked me that because this is where our journey is going. So I'm going to boil this down for you. Ready? I'm going to make sure I covered everything. Oh, Thoth is also the author of the Book of the Dead. Have you read much of the Book of the Dead? It's pretty beautiful. There's a quote in the Book of the Dead, and I meant to write it down for you today, and it's just been such a crazy day, I did not end up writing it down. But the quote is, do any of you know it? It's the name, I know your name, and I know all of your names. Gives me chills. Do you know this quote from the Book of the Dead? I know your name, and I know all of your names. Let me see if I can find it really quick. I'll have to look for it later. I don't want to take your time now, but there's this really beautiful quote in the Book of the Dead. And it basically says, I know your name, but I know all of your names. And it's all of the names that you have gone by in your soul's entire history, right? You're looking for it? Okay. Yeah, so and I love that too, because sometimes with you guys, I feel like that. Like, I know your name, but I know all of your names. You know what I mean? And I feel sometimes like you know me and you know all of my names. Right? Yeah, it's pretty cool. I know you and I know your names. That's right. So that's one of the quotes from the Book of the Dead. Okay. And Thoth wrote that. Here's where all of this is going. I had an experience once. Somebody said a name. I can't even remember what it was. It was like Anu something. And they said this name, and like my whole body just stopped. It was one of the only times when I thought to myself, like, they just said my name. And it was a name that I had never heard before. It was like Anu or Anua or Anna something. And I felt like it was Mesopotamian. And I just remember, I don't know if you've had that feeling before. It was not Anunnaki, but it was Anu or Anna. And I stopped. And like my whole body went completely still. And it was like, some part of me wanted to say, I'm here. But I didn't know what it was, right? It wasn't Anya. It was Anu or Anna or Anua or Anuma or something like that. Interesting, isn't it? When you hear names. Yeah, it was Sumerian. Well, and that's another lifetime that I was shown in a regression too. Yeah. That I had been either a priestess to Inanna, which would make a lot of sense to me. Because when I look at the language, right, when I look at the ancient languages and sort of the, the carvings of the name is escaping me, but the Sumerian, the hash, what is the name of that? The cuneiform. When I see cuneiform, so this is the last quick story I'll tell you. So Dave and I rented a house in Idlewild here. This was years ago. I recommend doing some past life regression. Just do it with somebody reputable. I don't really have anybody to refer you to because the people who I used to do it with don't do it anymore. Right? It's interesting, right? So Dave and I rented this house in Idlewild years ago. We took the kids up, and because I love Idlewild. I used to go to music camp there when I was young. And it was a weird house. I came to find out later that it was a journey house. And not necessarily a really positive one. And it's funny because I felt the energy when I went in there. It was fine. I smudged and we were good. We had a good time on that trip. So we're in this house and it was like a weird house with these different layers. It was like 3 stories and it had like 6 bathrooms, but it was just a weird house. So I went down into the bottom level of the house to use the bathroom. Then I closed the door of the bathroom and I look up on the wall and it's a cuneiform tablet. I mean, like 3 feet by 2 feet. I still have a picture of it. I'll find it and I'll post it for you. It was a cuneiform tablet. No, that's not it, Alexis. But thank you though. That doesn't sound like Book of the Dead. I'm not sure. That's not the quote. Is that Book of the Dead? That's not the quote I know. Anyway, I'll try and find it, but I appreciate you looking. Something like that. Sylvie's is more like, it sounds more like what Sylvie just posted. I appreciate you looking though. Anyway, so I close the door, I'm sitting there, I'm peeing, and I look up and I'm like, holy shit, I think I can translate that. Like it was so familiar, right? So there's something about cuneiform that part of me like stops and tries to translate it when I see it. So maybe that's a symbol of that. That's pretty powerful. So weird how life takes you through on these journeys and like, what the hell was I doing in a Airbnb house with a fucking cuneiform tablet on the wall and I'm sitting there peeing and I'm like, I think I know what that means. And I wasn't high. Cuneiform? Yeah, I'll spell it for you. And then look it up. Enheduanna, which I've often thought maybe that was what my name was. Enheduanna was the priestess, the first high priestess in the history of our planet, Enheduanna. And she was high priestess to Inanna. And she wrote the first written tablet. The first writing on this planet ever documented was in cuneiform, written by Enheduanna. And it was a song that she wrote. Isn't that beautiful? So maybe that's what it was. I don't know. Interesting, right? Yeah, and Enheduanna resonates with me too. Okay, so here's where all of this is going. our caduceus tonight for integration. Now do you see why this is full circle for me? I'm so passionate about what I'm teaching you. I feel really guilty on a certain level because I feel like I'm giving you like the Cliff's Notes version of this, and I feel in my soul I wish I could give you like way more than I'm giving you tonight. I'm trying not to overwhelm you because I don't want this to be like, especially if you're not that interested, I don't want you to be overwhelmed. But this is why this is so full circle for me. I feel like this is my soul's lineage. I feel like my daughter knows this on some cosmic level. I feel like this is the final integration of everything that we need to understand in order to heal ourselves. So even if this isn't your lineage, this is like everything you need to know right now. And what I'm about to say, I'd be happy to give you a reading list. It should include the Flower of Life book that I'm referring to and the Kybalion. And so if you haven't read all this, I think it's important. And it's hard to find all this information kind of consolidated this way. You know, again, I've been researching for this for such a long time, and a lot of the stuff that you see online and read online and watch online, it's like kind of, it gets weird. You know what I mean? So I'll work on a reading list. So here's where all of this is going. Okay. Yeah, cuneiform is fucking amazing. I was able to get a little cup in Tucson from this crazy man. Do you remember when I went live with him? Okay, I did a giveaway from him too. He has Sumerian artifacts. I hope there's a Tucson next year so that I can go and find him again. But and he has cuneiform, like actual relics with cuneiform. I mean, they're $500, $1,000, $5,000, but he has actual cuneiform relics. So nuts. And it's amazing to sit there. I couldn't afford a lot of the things that he had, but I remember holding one of the little mini tablets he had and just running my finger over it because he let me touch it. And it's like, oh, you can just feel where the knife went into the clay. Like you can feel it. Isn't that amazing? He was insane. I'm glad a lot of you remember that because that was like when I went live with you guys, when I found him, I was shaking. I was so excited. I couldn't believe it. Okay. What Hermes tried to teach us, what Mercury tried to teach us, what Thoth tried to teach us is the same thing, okay? Which is the all, like everything in this universe, and this is what I really want you to hear from tonight, is one. You and me, we're one. Masculine, feminine is one. Light and darkness is one. Everything that we see as a duality in this universe, daytime, there's a cute little hummingbird outside, daytime and nighttime is one. There is only one. And that's the way that Hermes Trismegistus explains source energy. And I like it because it doesn't alienate people. He doesn't talk about God. He talks about one, capital O. That there's one. There's one source. There's one frequency. There's one truth. There's one life force. And if you create duality, that's exactly right, Suzanne, part of a whole. If you create duality, just the way that we believe from Genesis that God created out of one man and then took a rib and created woman, right? Out of one, there is two. But those two are one. For a man and a woman to create life, they have to become one. And that's why I was saying it's fascinating to me. I've been doing this a long time. And what I've learned is even the digressions that we sometimes go on. We were talking about sex at the beginning of this conversation tonight and how it may or may not be the highest expression of love, right? Remember me telling you, I think it's all connected, and you're probably like, how the hell is that connected? There's a reason that is a unifying force, because in the moment of intercourse, there is a reunification of the duality, and that's why it's holy and sacred. Right? And that's magic. Is that the only magic in the universe? No, I don't think it is. But it is one form of magic, and it is the only form of magic that creates life. Now, I'm bisexual, and I've had plenty of relationships with women, and I will tell you that those are some pretty sacred moments too. But it doesn't create life, right? There is that one. I've created life twice, and I can tell you that those moments when he and I created life, I know exactly when my children were conceived. I could tell you where they were conceived. I can tell you what time of day it was. It wasn't like, I was not one of those people who, a month later is like, oh, I got pregnant. I literally in those moments was like, I just created life. We just created life. That just happened. I knew it in both of those moments. I think if you're sensitive to it, you know. I knew in the moment. The tests were just a validation. But I remember both times going, we just created life. It's interesting, isn't it? A lot of you are saying the same thing. And I will tell you both times, interesting or not, we didn't start it to have children in those moments, but in the moment when it was happening, we both knew. Like, that just happened, right? So, all is one. Masculine, feminine are dual, but they create one, right? They come together to create one. Light and shadow, different. They create one. Why this is important to you is your darkness, your anger, your rage, your frustration, your impatience, your shittiness, your mood swings, your temper tantrums, your fears, your anxieties, is required for your one. It's required. There has to be a balancing to your love and your kindness and your generosity. There has to be a balancing. That's why people who are just always positive and, I don't know, happy Hildas all the time, have nervous breakdowns. They do. Because at some point it's not happy Hilda. At some point Hilda's real pissed. And she's also resentful. And she's tired of it. And she's angry. And then Hilda flips out. And then everybody's like, what the hell happened to Hilda? And it's like, because Hilda was trying to be happy Hilda all the time. And Hilda's not always happy. Right? It takes both. It takes the yin and the yang energies to... Yeah, thank you. It's Drunvalo. Thank you, Sherry, for that. It is Drunvalo. Okay. They create one. And not just your light, but your shadow. Or they get sick. That's a great point, too. Happy Hilda ends up not feeling so good because Hilda's not happy all the time. Hilda's pissed. Hilda's husband made her really mad last night. She needs to talk about it. I'm saying Hilda because I don't think there's any Hildas in our group, and I don't want people to feel called out. Hurling Hilda is different from happy Hilda, and both Hildas need to be expressed. Okay. What other dualities, before we start our journey, what other dualities? I'm going to anoint with my perfume that we made this month, by the way. I need a little labdanum right now. Yeah, you saw me get pissed last night. Because guess what? That shit was wrong. And I'm not happy Hilda about it. It's shitty and it's wrong. Do you know that Yelp took down Jordan's negative review today? Because it was shown to be invalid and not based on a real experience. Bye, Jordan. That shit was wrong. And I'm going to tell her about it. Do you know not one person has said anything in social media today about it? Bye. I was really pissed about it. We really had done something good. People were just jerks. So I showed my other Hilda because I'm not just happy Hilda all the time. I'm also hurling Hilda. What other, I appreciate you guys. What other dualities are there though? Can you articulate as we anoint? What other dualities are there? Light, shadow, masculine, feminine, which, by the way, you're both. You're masculine and you're feminine. You are light, you are shadow, you are good, you are the opposite of good, whatever that is. You are energetic and depressed. You are living, but you will die. Yeah, we went live to make the perfume, Rochelle. So you can find the recording if you want it. You're sweet and you're salty. I love that from Hannah. That's so good. You're growing and you're also being destroyed. You're the sun and the moon. You're love and you're hate. You're hot and you're cold. You're yin and you're yang. Yin and yang, traditionally. You're moon and your sun. You're off and you're on. You're summer and winter, but you're also fall and spring. You're fleeting and you're lasting. Above and below. Healthy or sick. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Empty and full. Fire and water. It's true. You are these. I mean, you can both stir yourself up and then put yourself right out. You have the capacity to do that. You're up, you're down. You're strong and you're weak. You are teacher and student. Sometimes I am student with you. Sometimes I am teacher with you. You're everything and you're nothing. You're full and you're empty. You're war and you're peace. You're hard and you're soft. You're tough and you're sweet. It's so good. You're waxing and you're waning. Look how fun these are. You're speaking and you're silent. You're cold and you're hot. You're in the sky and you're on the ground. And that's okay. That is actually normal. And we have to begin to normalize that and teach people that that's normal so that people don't feel like they always have to be in a good mood. You know, you can be real pissed off and that's great because you're balancing, you're integrating, you're becoming whole. You're strong and you're gentle. You're a child, you're adult, right? Sometimes I say things and Dave's like, that's like the dumbest, most immature thing you've ever said. And I'm like, great. Then I'm fully dumb and immature in this moment. And I'm so embracing that because I don't want to always be smart. I don't want to be the professor every time. I want to make a dumb joke. I want to say something that's stupid. I want to, make a fart sound and whatever and not be serious because I don't want to always be serious. It's too much pressure on me, right? You guys are so good. Okay, so I want you to bring your attention into present time. The acceptance of your duality is the medicine tonight. And if you have not accepted your duality before, this is an invitation to you. Right? And I also think of it like in the ancient days, the priestesses, those of us who were priestesses, like held a lofty post, right, in our societies. But I had lifetimes where I was a servant to a priestess in training, right? Where I had to go through training. I had to clean the temple floors. I had to prepare the herbs for the one who was going to be a priestess. I had to clean the temple for the priestess. I had to, light the candles for the priestess. That's duality, right? It's earning your stripes. Yeah, you and your twin flame. So if you believe what most people believe, there are two halves to a soul. One half incarnates, one half stays in spirit. And then when you die, that other half comes back. And then when that other half dies again, you come back. And the deal is you watch out for each other. So sometimes I talk to that half of me. That's one of I have these conversations out loud sometimes when I'm falling asleep. They're whispery conversations, but I have these conversations with my higher self and with what I call my outlook. And I can feel that spirit, and sometimes I'm like, just be with me, like just stay with me. This is hard right now. And I can feel that other energy going, I'm with you. I wish I could go through this with you. I'm sorry. This is hard, and I see you, and you know what I mean? I think that there's not higher self. Your higher self is all of you. It's every lifetime you've had, and it watches you. It is you, but it's not just you in this life. Your higher self is all of the you. So when you do something kind of silly in this lifetime, your higher self sometimes smacks you and is like, you know better than that. Why would you do that? You're bigger than that. You're stronger than that. You're wiser than that. Why would you do that? Your higher self sometimes is like, are you kidding me right now? Like, we've had way too many lifetimes for you to be acting like this. That's the whole of you is your higher self, because it isn't just you now. It was you in Mesopotamia, it was you in Egypt, it was you in Greece, it was you in Rome, and it's like, oh, you did not just do that, right? Whereas your twin flame is sort of your, I always think of my twin flame as masculine because it feels like a masculine energy, and it's like, it's the ultimate partner that isn't your partner now, because it can't be, because it can only incarnate when you're not here. So it's your ultimate guardian angel, right? I think you can meet soulmates. I really do. And I think that it's funny because as I'm getting older, the thought has started to roll through my head, like, will I know when my soulmates pass away? Because I've had a few in this lifetime, but I'm not in touch with most of them anymore. So as I approach my 50s, I've had this thought, like, because they're older than I am, like, will I know when they're not here anymore? Like, will there be a little blip on my screen of, like, that person isn't here anymore in the material? You know what I mean? And then what kind of grand reunion there is when you pass, right? If they're there, it's like, all of a sudden, because then it's not time, space, relationship boundaries, things like that disappear, and it's just like a reunion of these souls. But I think as soon as you pass, your twin flame gets ready to reincarnate, because now you can watch out for them. And that's why I think there's about a 60 to 100 year span between our incarnations, in my belief, because that gives the twin flame time to find a body and come down and do the thing. And then they live, die, and come back. And then that gives you time to find a body, write a soul contract, and then dive back in to someone's uterus, right? And then go through your process. I don't know, Tab. Not sure. It's a good question. How do you know if and when you have a twin flame? Start feeling into it. I think we all have them. They're just not here with you, right? I think everybody has one. Is it the same with pets? I don't know. I think pets are soulmates. I really do. Soulmates aren't just people you have sex with. I have some soulmates in my life in the past that I didn't have sex with, but they were soulmates. And I do hope to see them again one day. I do. All right. Smudgy's totally my soulmate. He is my man cat, and he is my soulmate. He is my cat soulmate for sure. Yeah, I mean, Sheree, I'm with you. I don't think we are with twin flames on this planet. So let's begin. Yeah, Stephanie, so if you missed this last part of the conversation, that's the difference I was articulating, so you may want to go back and watch that a little bit later. Okay, let's begin. Let's call in the guardians of the four gateways to be with us in our journey tonight. So we begin, as always, by calling in the guardians of the East. We ask them to come through. I talk too much, so I have to gloss it up. Otherwise, my lips get smacky. To the guardians of the East, we welcome you in for all that you bring, for the elevated view, for the ability to rise above where we are in the here and now and see something bigger with more clarity. And so just breathing in that labdanum and that bay laurel is so beautiful tonight. Yeah, don't worry, it's there. You can always go back later. We give thanks for the clarity and the perspective that the guardians of the East bring. And we call them in tonight. We welcome them in with grace and gratitude. And to the guardians of the South, as we approach our Atlantean roots tonight, we call in medicine of the South for change and transformation, and also for release, renewal, shape-shifting a little bit. So grateful for fire element energy, which just burns clean, leaves nothing in its path. It's complete. Fire energy is complete. It completes the cycle. So we call in the southern guides and guardians of that gateway to be present with us with grace and gratitude. And to the guardians of the west, we call in healing tonight through this perspective of unity, which is what this journey is all about, really calling in these energies of the threefold face of Hermes to bless us with wisdom, which is governed by the west, to bless us with healing, to bless us with prosperity as well in the west. We welcome them with grace and gratitude. And to the guardians of the north, for wisdom, which is so much a part of our journey tonight, for strength, for protection, for grounding. We call them in, we welcome them into the ceremony space tonight with grace and gratitude. And with that, our circle is open for our work tonight. I want to hear more about that, Sherry. Sherry says she does not have a twin flame. That's very interesting. Maybe your twin flame incarnated. Interesting. So, tonight we're going to begin with both. We're going to explore all three faces of Hermes Trismegistus tonight. And as we explore each one, I want you to focus on this concept of the all. And you have a magical lineage. Your soul didn't come to this planet just now. It didn't. Your soul's been here many times. And your soul has crossed oceans, land masses. Your soul has inhabited bodies that are male and female. Your soul has practiced every religion and spiritual tradition. And so I want you to imagine now the journey that you took to Lemuria or to Atlantis, both of which were submerged in water. So no matter whether you are Lemurian or Atlantean, you're probably one or the other. Different water, different temperature of water. Lemurian water was warm and peaceful. Atlantean water was cold and deep. And so I want you to feel into your soul's lineage tonight, the oneness of you. What body of water did you cross to come here? Was it warm? Mine was cold. Woo. And when you came here, you were part of a master plan. The Lemurians were brought here to teach universal love. But the Atlanteans were brought here to create structure for love, to create technology and advancement and transition and movement. They also brought conflict because they brought duality. They brought duality. And so Thoth came here to teach the Atlanteans that even in their duality, they were connected to the one. And so even if you feel part of a duality now, separated from other people, or separated from your purpose, or separated from one that you love, well, duality brings a breadth of experience. Duality is a teacher, right? When you become aware of your femininity and how it's separate from your masculinity, doesn't that teach you about yourself? And because of the duality, because I'm a woman, I get the pleasure of joining with the masculine to create life. Right? It's a teaching. And then ultimately I get to learn, the big learning, right? We only know good because of its contrast to evil. We only know light because of its contrast to dark. If we didn't have contrast, to Bianca's point, how would we know if it's light or dark? We need edges, we need distinctions, we need boundaries, we need difference. Right? The teacher. It's all a teacher. If life was always easy, would you learn? We learn when it's hard. We don't like it, but we're learning. Right? We get better. We become more authentic, more accurate when we struggle, because we learn from it. So I want you to take a moment and remember your own arrival on this planet. And I want you to feel into the origin story, alchemical roots. And I want you to open up and create some space tonight for how different you may have been in that time. Thoth was only part human, right? We were hybrid creatures back then. What do you think the Sphinx is? We were part human, part bird. Part human, part lion. Part human, part fish, right? Which is what a mermaid is. We were in a physical state of duality in the Thothian time. So feeling into what that might have been like for you. I can't reach Claire and Alexis. Do you know if they're online right now?
I just told you they're online.
Okay, they're not responding to me, so that's why I'm wondering.
Well, that's why I'm trying to help you. That's why I'm on the phone with you.
Okay.
So can you help me help you?
Okay.
So can you hit stream again?
Just a second. Okay.
Did you hit stream?
I did.
Now hit this button. Oh, no, don't hit that.
Okay, they say I'm live. I don't have any chat. Can you tell me how to refresh my chat?
Is it in the background? Do you see the box?
Yeah, it's just it says it's unable to connect.
So hit refresh.
Okay. There's no refresh.
No. Over here.
Alright, so, hang
Hit
on.
that.
If you guys can see me, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened, and I'm trying to work with my team to get back on. I'm so sorry.
Or hit right here.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so you see Google, your Google browser?
Mama, you gotta get out of full screen.
Okay, I don't know how to do that. Can you help me?
I
with that?
don't either, man.
Okay.
You
know
just-
what, guys? I think I'm gonna sign off for just a few minutes while my team and I really apologize. I've lost my chat completely. I'm so sorry, you guys. But Dave, when Dave gets back, I'm gonna try to go live tonight and finish the rest of the journey. I really apologize. In fact, I did the whole journey. I didn't realize you guys weren't with me, so I feel really bad. But Dave unfortunately isn't here, and so I'm not able to get my chat back connected. So I'm going to sign off for now. I'm really sorry. As soon as I can get back online, we'll finish the rest. We'll do the journey part together. I'm trying to reach Claire and Alexis. I don't think they haven't told me yet, but I don't think you saw any of the journey that I did. I'm really, really sorry, guys. I thought it was a really great journey. We're having technological challenges, obviously. So what I'm going to do is Dave is going to be back in a few minutes. I'm going to reset everything up, and we will pick up right at the journey. And then I'll check in as soon as I can with Alexis and Claire. I'm trying to reach them now by text, but I'm not able to reach them. So as soon as I can reach them too, I'll find out how much of the journey you may have seen, but I probably will just end up redoing the entire journey with you live because I want you to have the full experience. So thank you for your patience. If you can see me, I'll be back on live with you as soon as Dave gets back. And again, my apologies.